Welcome to Daily Armour. Today we're going to be in John chapter 11, but before I even get there, I want to tell you a little funny story of how we got here. This was kind of not really where I thought we would end up being, but God's always, showing me something, and I just get excited, and I'm excited to share it with you. So, this morning, as Todd was leaving out for work, he popped his head back in the door and he said, "Have you been praying about this particular thing that we're praying about?" And I said, "Well, I haven't been a lot, but I did pray about it early this morning. Like, just kind of felt like a nudge, like I really need to get serious about praying about it." And he was like, "Okay." And he was frustrated. Part of his problem is he had been up since, I don't know, probably before 3 in the morning. Um, I was woken up, and then I realized he wasn't in the bed, and I asked him what was wrong. He said he just struggling to sleep. He's a little anxious about some things going on, and he was just struggling to sleep. And so he was in the bathroom taking a bath and trying to study and pray and just trying to get all this other stuff off his mind. And I had gotten a text about 3 something in the morning, and I was responding to the text, and that's why he even said anything. I knew he was out of the bed, but I didn't say anything to him, but he could hear my phone clicking, and he said, "Who are you texting?" And I told him, and he said, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Yeah, it's fine." And so I was responding to the text, and in my response to the text, I texted John 11. And then, going on about my morning, just wide awake and feeling like, Lord's always got something special for us each and every day. And then as he was leaving for work, he had popped his head back in, and he had said, I don't understand why that, nothing is happening with this particular thing that we're praying about. And I said, because that's why he was at. He's like, "Are you praying about this? We've got to pray about it together." And I said, "Yes, I'm praying about it." I said, "But I'm also praying it's whatever the Lord wants." I said, "It really doesn't matter to me if it goes this way or that way." I said, "Because what I'm excited about is just seeing whatever the Lord wants." And and sometimes, like I've shared in some of these devotions on prayer, is sometimes he really does say no. And he has told me no several times, and not near as many as probably that I expect or that I deserve. But he does tell me no from time to time, and that's so healthy for him to tell us no. First of all, we don't always ask for the right things, and maybe we're asking for something that's dangerous or whatever. But more often than not, when I am praying, things don't work out like I thought they would. Not really kind of how I prayed about it. And it definitely was not about my timing. Because, I'm like everybody else. When I pray about something, I'm looking. Okay, is it going to be today? Okay, Lord, is this the next day? I prayed about this yesterday. Lord, is it today? And my anticipation is I'm looking, and I have an expectation that, yes, he is going to answer my prayer. Yes, it could be yes. It could be immediate. Very rarely for me has it ever been immediate. And a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times it is actually no. And sometimes I have to wait to realize it's going to be a no. Sometimes the no happens pretty immediate and I find out pretty quickly. But a lot of times I have to wait on the no. But then so many more times in my life, it's just wait and see. Be excited, anticipate, wait and see how it's going to take place. Yes, he's going to answer the prayer, but it's going to be his way, his will, and in his time. And so that's what I shared with Todd as he was going out the door. And I said, "Listen, hon," I said, "if he lets it happen, that's going to be wonderful." I said, "But it's all about his timing." And I said, "We just have to wait and see what he's got in store and just be excited." And he's like, I know. But like I said, sometimes some of it was just because he was tired. He just he read a restless night. just a lot of things going on in his mind. Not really so much worries, just so many things. Sometimes when you're surrounded by so many circumstances and you're trying to think of this and this and this and this and this and this, you just can't get your brain to shut off and you just can't rest. And that's why he was up. He was going to God's word. He was praying. He was trying to keep his eyes focused on Jesus and keep his mind off of all these other things going on. And so as I realized this morning, that I was kind of talking to him about prayer this morning, and as I'd come to church, I'm at church now. I don't have Avery for another several weeks, and then I'll also get Jackson. So I have a few weeks more off. And so I was at church and I was working on some different projects, and I was like, let me sit down, take a break. I had to kind of get rid of some excessive, I had a little bit of excessive energy this morning. So I was working, trying to get, use up some of that energy. I was finally like, okay, now I can get myself to settle down, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to work on my devotion. And I was at my desk here in my Sunday school classroom, and I sat down and I started out with a prayer letter that I was writing to the Lord, and I was praying about that particular thing that Todd wants me to pray about with him. And I am praying for it, but like I said, I'm asking, Lord, it's your wills, whatever you want. We don't know the future. We don't know if the timing just is not right, and it could happen today. I mean, before the day is over, if he so wants it to take place, it could happen before the day is over. But as I was writing out my prayer letter, and then I was getting to the end of it, and I was like, Lord, I'm, doing these devotions on prayer, and, I kind of at a pause here for a moment. And then I was thinking about, Lord, what should I go to? And then I was remembering my conversation with the pastor this morning about waiting on his timing and just waiting. And then I also remembered that, the scripture that I shared with the person, at 3:30 this morning was John chapter 11. Well, when I'm thinking about waiting on the Lord, I kind of always pop into my head is, that he's going to renew our strength, those that wait on the Lord, and verses like that. So I would, I was thinking, okay, we'll probably be in Psalms, or there's a proverb that speaks about that. And, we'll probably, I just went to my Bible thinking I'm going to look for that scripture about the renewing our strength and those that wait on the Lord. And there's several scriptures about waiting on the Lord, waiting on God, waiting on Jesus, waiting on him. And I was thinking, that's where I was thinking. So I reached for my Bible, and when I reached for my Bible, it was open to John chapter 11. And I just went, oh, like that. I was like, oh my goodness, because I had left it open on Sunday morning. Today's Tuesday. I'd left it open on Sunday morning, and I had put it where the next Bible lesson the Sunday school lesson would be. I put it at John chapter 11 because that's where my Sunday school lesson is going to be at on Sunday morning with the youth. And I looked, and the lesson plan was open, and I had already kind of marked a few things Sunday morning real quick. I don't always, get that done, so don't think anything like I'm always ahead of the game, because sometimes I anticipate being super busy and I can try to get ahead of the game, and then sometimes it don't do me any good anyway. But in saying that, I opened to John chapter 11. I was like, oh my goodness, it was already open to that. And then I immediately thought about the person that I had texted at 3:30 this morning, and John chapter 11 went right with the conversation. And then I was thinking, oh my goodness, let's just do John chapter 11, because if we're talking about God's timing, there's no better example about his timing than John chapter 11. First of all, it was one of those situations that it was going to take the Lord. It was going to take God himself stepping in to remedy the situation. And then it looked like all hope was gone, and that he wasn't going to come through, and that he was too late. It looked like it was too late. It was 4 days late, actually. It was too late. But nothing is impossible with God. And God has a plan, and he's got a purpose. And sometimes even when he makes us wait, it's for better reason. It's not something we understand, and it might even be difficult. Sometimes the things we're waiting for are difficult, and we might even have to do like Mary and Martha and those that were with them, and they might have to go through, and I might have to go through, and you might have to go through some grief and some sorrow. But then God has a way of even turning our sorrows to joy, of turning those things that were so difficult, and He knows how to get some good out of it so that He gets glory out of it. And that's what I want to turn. I want to go to John chapter 11. I'm not going to read all of the account. It's too many verses for us to go through, because it goes from 1 through, really you could really do the whole chapter of John chapter 11, because even when you get down to verse number 45, this miracle led to the Pharisees plotting to kill Him. And it was all of everything was about the timing, because it was time. Because it was time. It was time for Him to go to the cross. And so He's setting all these things up for a reason, for a purpose. First of all, we look at verse number 4 and we see the problem. And there's a problem to pray about. And we all have problems. We're not exempt from it. Just because I'm a preacher's wife, it doesn't mean I'm exempt from problems. I got problems just like everybody else. I've got heartaches and heartbreaks and fears and things that I have to take to the Lord so that He can help me not to be afraid, and He can remind me, don't be afraid, trust me, trust me, trust me. He does that with me all the time. I've got things that I struggle with. I've got besetting sin that I have to keep a check on, that I have to watch, attitude and actions and things that I'm drawn to, like sugar that He told me not to have anymore. It's really, really hard some days. Most days I'm fine with it, but then sometimes those right circumstances will get me just like they'll get you. And so here I'm in John chapter 11, and we see there's a problem to pray about. And like I said, we all got problems to pray about. Some are more serious than others, that's for sure. And some days you're more panicked over it than other days. Some days you can have the same problem, but you're not as panicked over it. And even when you're panicked or anxious or frustrated or tired, go to the Lord. In verse number 4, we see that Lazarus is sick, and he says this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. So we see there is a problem worth praying about, but Jesus is saying, this is a problem, and I agree with you, this is a problem, and there's cause for prayer. And if He had been there, it wouldn't have happened the way He needed it to happen. And He was waiting because He said it was going to glorify God, and that He was going to be glorified in the midst of it as well. He's doing this, he's demonstrating some things before some other things are going to take place. So we've got a problem to pray about. Lazarus is sick. And then a problem that you will end up praising Him over. And this is very difficult to think that how could we praise over anybody's death? I don't care whose it is. And I have a brother who's passed away, and it was so hard and so difficult. And you've lost loved ones. I've lost loved ones. Dad, grandparents, things like that. And and some have lost a child, a spouse. I haven't experienced those things, and Lord willing, I hope I don't. But if I do, He's going to get me through it. I have to cling to that, or I will just be anxious and panicked over everything. And so here we see that this is worth praying about. It's definitely a problem worth praying about, but He says it's also a problem that's going to be worth praising about. Because He says here in verse number 4, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. So we need to look at our problems and see how the Lord can be glorified through those problems. And he certainly can do that. And then we'll see that that when the request was made, that he was found, and they said, Lord, we need you to come back. Lazarus is sick. And He waited. He didn't answer immediately. He didn't heal him immediately. Now we know He could have, because He did that for others. He didn't even have to go and show up. He healed, and he spared lives without even having to go. He could have said the word and Lazarus would have been healed. But he waited. He waited because he's in control. It says in verse number 6, and when he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. He didn't move. He just waited. Because it's all about timing. It's all about God's timing. And the way that God has answered my prayer so many times has been amazing. But I'll tell you that the timing of it has been even more amazing than the miracle of it. And I can't even begin to think of all the scenarios where, you know, when God finally said yes, or he finally took care of a situation or a problem, it was not so much that the problem was taken care of, but it was like, I can't believe that happened when it happened. I can't believe that was, you know, that's what we've been, and God's timing was so perfect and so right. And oh my goodness, I mean, sometimes Todd and I have had a little shouting party at home, praising the Lord at home, because we know that his timing was just so impeccable that we just couldn't even fathom it. He is absolutely amazing. He's in control of time. He tells time when it's time. I love that. When I had that, you know, thought, that's never left me, that he tells time when it's time. I'm looking at my watch. I'm looking at the time on the video and thinking, oh gosh, I got to get a rolling here. We're going to be an hour, and so time is telling me hurry it along. But God tells time when it's time, and I just think that's amazing and wonderful. He abode there 2 days still in the same place. So he stayed where he was. And what happened while everybody's waiting on the Lord, and he's waiting. He's not coming right that minute. He's not intervening right that second. We know he can, and he does when it's his will. But he stayed there. What happened in the situation? It got worse. It got worse. And look in verse number 14. It got to the point where, then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. So he didn't just get sick and needed to be healed. Now he's dead. Now he's gone. And then look what he says here in verse number 15. Remember, he said before, he said, this is for the glory of God. And he says, verse 15, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe, nevertheless, let us go unto him. He's like, I purposefully am glad I'm not there, wasn't there. He purposefully made sure he wasn't there when Lazarus got sick. He knew all these things. He has the perfect plan. Everything operates. He's in control. Do we understand that sometimes? He's in control of the wind and the waves and the flowers and the sun and the moon and the stars, and because he made all of it. But he also made me, and he also made you, and he's in control of me, and he's in control of you. And he decides where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be there. I don't get to. I can say, I even told, I go to the dentist tomorrow, and I told the girl when she called to confirm my appointment, I said, I will be there, Lord willing, because some things is out of my control. Sometimes I'm stuck in traffic. I could get sick in the morning. I could go out and my car not crank. I could get in an accident on the way there. There are so many things that can happen that I'm not in control of. But I know he's in control. And if that's where I'm supposed to be tomorrow morning at 9:45, then that's where I'll be, because he's in control and I'm not. But he is. And so he knows, and he said, I'm glad for your sakes, which is, sometimes it seems mean or shocking, or, Lord, how can you get any good out of this? But we know he can, and we know he did in this situation. And then we find out that it's not just that he's dead, but now when they get back, it's too late. Why is it too late? Because he's already buried. He's already in the grave. It's too late. It's too late. So it seems. Let's look in verse number 17. And it says, Jesus saith unto her, thy brother... No, I'm wrong. I'm at 23. Sorry. Verse number 17. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. When he showed up, it was too late, wasn't it? It was too late. He not only went from being sick, but the sickness killed him. And then he's not just died. It's not like he just did his last breath and he can be revived. You could do, CPR on him and revive him. No, he's been in the grave for 4 days. He's 4 days late. But even when God is 4 days late, he's still on time. And that boggles my mind. That absolutely boggles my mind. Because look what he says. It's not too late. He said, verse number 23, he was talking to Martha, and he said unto her, thy brother shall rise again. And she's like, Lord, I know he's going to rise in the resurrection. I know that day's coming. I know that's because you've taught us that. He said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. He doesn't just say things, he demonstrates them. He absolutely demonstrates it. He didn't just say, I love you. He demonstrated his love for us when he died on that cross. But what we're celebrating Sunday is Easter, and we're not just celebrating that, yes, he died for my sins, and oh, I am so thankful that he did, because I tried to make up for it and I couldn't, because I could never have paid that price or that penalty. But he died on the cross for my sins, but he's not dead. He's not in a tomb. He's not in the grave. He's not buried somewhere. He is alive. On that third day, he rose again. And then he went to the Father, and he placed the blood on the mercy seat. He offered that his own self as that atonement for my sin and for your sin. And he is not dead. He is absolutely very much alive. Very, very much alive. And he's showing this. He's demonstrating it, what it's going to look like, what it's going to be like. Because now, remember what I said, if you get it to the end, if you get toward the end, like after chapter 45, or not chapter 45, but verse 45 in chapter 11, then you start seeing the plot to kill Jesus. It's all part of the plan. They think it's their plan. It's not their plan. It's God's plan. It was the plan from the beginning of time, from the beginning of the earth, from before, God always had this plan, and his plan's going to take place, and it's going to be right on time. And so we see here that he tells them, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live, and whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? He's like, I need you to believe. I need you to believe in me. I know none of this makes sense. I know that you're grieving. I know that you're hurting. And he even, this is where we find the shortest verse in the Bible, which is verse number 35, where Jesus wept. He wept. He was grieving with them because he knew they were hurting right then, and he knew that it wouldn't be long and they were going to be hurting again because of what he was going to have to go through. But again, he tells them this, and he shows them this because it was for the glory of God. It was to defeat death, hell, and the grave. He defeated it all, and it was going to be painful to him, and it was going to be painful for those who were there. They were going to be grieving. And as I read the account of what he went through, it grieves me still today, and I wasn't even there. I cannot imagine if I had been there. I cannot even imagine that he was so marred up and so disfigured from all of that they had done to him, all the stripes, all the beatings. And just when you see in the scriptures where they spit on him and they slapped him, and I'm just like, he was humiliated, but he did it for me and he did it for you, and he knew it was temporary. He knew the grief was temporary, and it was going to be turned to joy. It was going to be turned to joy, and that's exactly what happened here. So she had a word on it. Martha had a word on it. The Lord said, your brother shall rise again. And he gave her his word. And then he explains, so that you would believe, in verses 25 and 26, Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection. We've just read those. Believest thou this? He wanted her to believe. So he shared that with her. And then we go over to verse number 43. Verse number 43, and it says, and when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. Now, they had to roll the stone away, and Martha said, Lord, he stinketh by now. So this is not just a dead body. This is a dead, decayed body. This is a body that has started to deteriorate, that is broken down, that would be stinky and nasty, and was breaking down. And Jesus said, Lazarus, come forth. And he did, because that's who he is. He's God. and he can just say it, and it will be. And it makes me know that I can pray those impossible prayers, because if he wants it to take place, all he's got to do is say it. All he's got to do is command it. And do I have to wait? Yes. Is the sometimes the answer no? Yes. Sometimes the answer is no. And if it's no, he's got something better in mind. He's got something better in store. He's protecting me from myself or from something else. He is in control. And so when we think about that he's 4 days late but still on time, that should cause us to rejoice in those things that we're waiting for. And even those things that you think, well, it's too late now. I'm too old now, and my pain's too far gone now, and it can't happen now, and my body won't repair, and I can't recover, and my strength is, down here, I'll never get that strength back. Those that wait on the Lord, he shall renew their strength. He can do it. I can't, and you can't. There's a lot of things that we can't do, but a lot of times God's saying it's not about what you can and can't do, but it's about what you believe that I can do. And it's all about his timing. And sometimes we have to wait for it. And then sometimes we have to be obedient to get it. Now, what if Martha had refused to roll away that stone? She had to do some things. She had to, she was the sister. She was, the one that they were looking to, and they were going to do what she asked. And she had to say, let's go roll away this stone, because whatever he says, that's what we need to do. And God told me to do some really hard things this past year, and the year before. He had some hard things for me to not to do, and then he had some hard things for me to do. And every time I mess up, I go back to but what did I say? That's what he lets me know if I take that bite of chocolate, that I know that I could have just, I didn't need to. And I don't do it all that often, but I shouldn't do it at all. But I can even get disobedient in those things. And when I give in, and immediately I have that, and he's like, but what did I say? No more sugar. It's not good for you. It's your trigger. It's harming you. And I'm trying to protect you. And so he reminds me every time, and I have to go back to him, and I have to expose some things. And I say, Lord, I messed up. I could sneak it when nobody else is looking, but Lord, you're always looking, and you always know. And being obedient, and then praying those impossible prayers, and then waiting for him. We got to wait for him sometimes. And Todd was, he's tired today. He didn't sleep well last night, and so he's a little frustrated. And I prayed this morning after I come to church. I'm like, Lord, you can help him, and you can give him strength, and he can come home this afternoon with just an excitement that it's exciting to wait on you, because look at what happened. Lazarus came forth. Why? Because God said so. But it had to be his timing and in his way. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again soon.